Your brain is extraordinarily good at being rigid. It runs on efficient, well-worn patterns, grooves it has carved from years of experience, predicting what comes next, filtering out the unexpected, defaulting to the same emotional responses, the same thought loops, the same story about who you are and why you feel the way you feel. Efficiency is the point. The brain conserves energy by repeating what has worked before. But sometimes the patterns that once protected you become the walls of a room you cannot leave. Before we go further, this video does not promote the use of illegal substances and does not encourage anyone to break the law. The information presented here is for informational and educational purposes only. Whatever the science says, the laws of your country apply to you, and we ask that you respect them. In 2026, researchers at UC San Francisco and Imperial College London published a study in Nature Communications that describes what happens when those walls temporarily come down. 28 healthy adults who had never previously taken a psychedelic participated in the study. Each received a low placebo dose first, then a full 25 milligram dose of psilocybin, the compound found in certain species of mushrooms, 1 month later. The researchers used electroencephalography, functional MRI, and diffusion tensor imaging to track changes in the brain during the experience and at multiple points over the following month. Within 60 minutes of taking the high dose, the EEGs showed a sharp and significant spike in what researchers call brain entropy. Entropy in this context means the diversity and complexity of neural activity, how many different patterns of firing the brain is producing simultaneously. A high entropy state is essentially the opposite of the brain's normal efficient mode. Instead of running its familiar predictive grooves, the brain begins generating a richer, less predictable, more varied range of activity. New regions start communicating with regions they do not normally reach. Old boundaries between networks dissolve. The researchers found that participants who experienced the greatest increase in brain entropy during the experience reported the strongest sense of psychological insight the following day. And those who reported the most insight also showed the greatest improvements in well-being measured weeks later. The link runs from the chaos of the experience to the clarity that followed it. More striking was what the structural imaging showed. The changes were not purely functional. Measurable anatomical changes in brain structure remained detectable for up to 1 month after a single dose. The researchers described these changes as consistent with a window of heightened neuroplasticity, a period during which the brain is more malleable, more capable of updating entrenched patterns and forming new connections. This provides a possible explanation for something clinical researchers have been documenting for years: the therapeutic effects of psilocybin on depression, addiction, post-traumatic stress, and anxiety often persist far beyond the experience itself. Not because the compound stays in the system, psilocybin clears the body within hours, but because the experience may reorganize the brain at a structural level, and the reorganization persists. Robin Carhart-Harris, who led the research, has previously described what he calls the REBUS model, relaxed beliefs under psychedelics. The idea is that the brain normally runs a tight top-down system. Prior beliefs and predictions suppress incoming information that doesn't fit the existing model. Psilocybin appears to loosen this suppression, temporarily allowing the bottom-up signal, raw experience, unfiltered by expectation, to carry more weight. The brain, briefly, is less certain about what it already knows, and uncertainty, in this context, creates the conditions for genuine change. The researchers are careful about limitations. 28 participants is a small sample. The study is exploratory rather than confirmatory. Participants knew they had taken the drug, making true blinding impossible. Whether the structural changes are permanent or require repeat dosing is unknown. The findings should be understood as promising rather than settled. What they do suggest is this: the brain is capable of being loosened. The rigid patterns that depression, addiction, and trauma install, the grooves that become walls, are not permanent features of the architecture. A single experience, under the right conditions, may create a window during which the brain is briefly willing to be rewritten. Not by the compound, by what happens during it, by what the brain does with its own temporary freedom from itself. Psilocybin has been used in ceremonial contexts for thousands of years. Western science halted research for decades. The field is only now catching up. The question it is beginning to answer is not whether the experience changes you. It is why, and for how long, and whether we can learn to use that window deliberately.